All right, so everybody, this is the State of America, episode 8. Women's rights, Roe versus Wade, and the inequality of women in society. And we do have some new speakers here tonight. And for people that are new to this, we're gonna go ahead and go around the round table and do introductions. And we're gonna have people who haven't spoken before go ahead and start. Let's see. Mandy, would you like to go ahead and start and give us an introduction? Tell us about yourself.
Sure. I'm Mandy. I live in PA. I use she, they pronouns. I don't know. This is definitely a conversation that needs to be had, but there's not really a lot of safe places to have this conversation where women actually get to say what they need to say without being interrupted by some guy. So I'm hoping that's what I'm going to find here tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mandy. We appreciate you. And yeah, we definitely want to give you the chance to speak as much as you'd like. Um, all right. So up next, Jen, do you want to give us an introduction? Tell us about yourself.
Sure. I'm Jen. I also live in Pennsylvania. Also interested in how this conversation is going to go because I think it does need to happen. I think that it's important to recognize that even though they're like women's issues, they're just not necessary and they affect everybody. And it's not just like on women to fix. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. I don't know what else to say. Okay.
All right. It's perfect. It's perfect. All right. So it looks like Sarah Small and Aaliyah Hovey. If you guys would like to go ahead and give us an intro.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Small, she, her. I am in Iowa along with Leah. Done a bunch of community organizing here and excited to have this conversation as well.
I'm Leah Hovey, Iowa, obviously. Um, yeah, I'm excited for the conversation, see what it's all about. Minutes win it.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. So next up we have June. Do you want to go ahead and give us an introduction?
Sure. I'm I may be the oldest one on this, so I've lived through a lot of things. I'm 76, and I came of age in the early 60s when a lot of things changed. So I can give my perspective on how I was raised to be a young adult and how it's affected me and how upset I am about this reversal of Roe v. Wade.
All right. Thank you so much, June. And okay, so now we're gonna go to our people that have spoken before. Christine, do you want to give us an introduction?
Hey, I'm Christine. I'm I've been through a lot in life, and so I'm just here to maybe talk about some of that as far as the topics. Um, Otherwise, I don't know what else to say. So I'm Christine. I look forward to this and hearing other people.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Dora, do you want to go ahead and give us a quick introduction?
Sure. I'm Dora. I'm with Augur Media. Do citizen journalism support and promotion, as well as some activism in my day. And I'm here to learn, listen, and maybe give some good feedback later at the end.
All right. Thank you so much, Dora. I see James has also joined. But David, do you want to go ahead and give us an intro?
Hi, welcome everybody. Buddy, my name is David Allen Moon from Dave Moon TV up in British Columbia. I'm going to just sit here and listen, and I really want to learn from our matriarchs tonight. And I thank you all for allowing me to join you.
All right, thank you so much, David, for being here. And James, it looks like you're the last one on the list. Do you want to go ahead and give us an intro?
Yeah, James Cartmel, Independent Citizen Media, here in support of the ladies, matriarchs. We want to hear what you have to say.
All right. Awesome, perfect. Okay, so we do have a few different topics to discuss tonight when it comes to women's rights, but at the same time, as a host of the show, I do want to kind of take a back seat, and if there's anything that the ladies in this Zoom meeting would like to speak up about, or topics that they'd like to bring up, I encourage them to speak up and to talk about them. Obviously, women's rights have changed a lot throughout the last century. With women's suffrage and women not being able to vote, and everything has basically changed. There was so much inequality, and I feel like it's getting better, but I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement. Anyways, first up, we have Mandy. Is there anything that you'd like to say about Roe versus Wade or the inequality of women? Anything at all? The floor is yours, so we'll go ahead and let you speak.
To start with, obviously, I haven't seen the other side of this like some of the people here, and I'm really more interested in what they have to say. But it's really concerning to see the effects that is already happening, where women and children are dying needlessly because they're being denied basic health care rights. And I really think that this is just the first step in something that's going to get a lot worse. It's very, obviously, I mean, I wasn't alive or aware of the situation at the time, but it's a lot like Iran in 1978, and things have just gotten worse and worse for the women in Iran, and we really need to, I don't know, we need to do something. We need to be out there voting here in a couple weeks, or and especially the states that have laws where you can collect a bounty for women, or they're being sentenced to death for trying to access health care or be able to make decisions about their own lives. I don't know. I still can't really wrap my head around it. I'm angry. I'm scared. I don't know. But I really do want to hear more from the people who have seen the other side of this. So I'm just going to leave that for now.
All right. Do you feel like you've been silenced at all? Do you feel like as a woman you've been more silenced than maybe a man would, or how do you feel about that?
I feel like in general women aren't heard or listened to as much as men are. Men definitely have more platforms to voice their opinions on, and people tend to, I've noticed even like a lot of women who have internalized misogyny, and this is not to hate on them at all, it's just something you have to decolonize your mind and understand where that's coming from. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I know any guys whose opinions I don't know, and I know a lot of women who, they have opinions, but the way things are is so normalized to them that they don't even think their opinions are worth sharing. But I feel like in this age where we can spread information and stories really like instantly. For now, you know, we should. I don't know. It should be different, and it's not much different.
All right. Thank you so much. And we can also come back to you. And if people are speaking and somebody wants to ask them a question, they're more than welcome to hop in and do that as well. So I guess I'll go ahead and go on to the next speaker. Jen, would you like to? Is there anything that you'd like to say about women's rights or the inequality of women, or Roe versus Wade, or any other subjects that you'd like to speak about? The floor is yours.
I've got like a million things, and so if I go on too long or like rant, please feel free for the women in here to cut me off. Mandy was talking about being silenced, and I think that one of the things that people don't realize is that men tend to cut off women a lot and talk over women, and women are kind of like acculturated to and socialized to wait their turn, and so that really kind of guides a lot of dynamics in gendered discussions. And so by all means, this is something that I could rant about for like months. But when it comes to like Roe versus Wade, and I'm really interested, like Mandy said, in hearing on the other side, but looking at not just the immediate deaths, but like how it affects the family structure, how forced pregnancy affects women's ability to like have jobs and continue it, especially when we don't have those social resources, when we don't have parental leave, because women's issues is not just about maternity leave, especially if you want to work, you should also be able to do that. And not being able to like climb that ladder, people, or even just recognizing that you shouldn't have to come up with terrible stories that do happen and that I've experienced to justify an abortion or a procedure that could prevent you from dying, or even just like changing your lives. We just don't have the social structure, and even if we did, it wouldn't be about having resources. It would be about ownership of your own bodies. And that leads me to the different laws that were like, hey, we're going to track you down when you cross state boundaries, but only if you're a pregnant woman, so that we can. Oh, this is so frustrating to me. But it's just like the way we move through life, our ability to be heard, and not just heard, but believed and not constantly questioned. I'm a mental health therapist, and so I see the effects of this on women constantly. And I think that another facet that people don't realize is that the repeal of Roe versus Wade is going to drastically affect the way that documentation is done with healthcare providers, which means that women will not be able to always know that they can trust people like their therapists or their doctors out of fear that either right now or in the future, because I don't know, maybe it can be retroactive, because that's what they're talking about in some laws, that you would have to hide vital healthcare information from the people who you are supposed to feel safe with and protected with. And healthcare workers just don't know what to do necessarily either, right? Because you have to have conversations where you're like, okay, we're going to talk about something that might eventually be illegal and hope that it doesn't. Women's rights affects trans issues, like all the way down to the not nullification, but trans men aren't given the same respect that trans women are, especially in athletics, because of this not internalized misogyny, but like outright misogyny, where people use like other civil rights issues in order to express their own misogyny. We want to talk about, I'm gonna say this and shut up, I promise. But talking about like what are some of the causes, like white supremacy and Christian nationalism work together to like hold women down. If you want to look, we were talking about the LGBT stuff earlier, and about the Christians coming out and saying that they want to protect our kids. Meanwhile, evangelical Christians are sexualizing little fucking girls, excuse my language, can I swear on this? To make them brides.
Fuck yeah, you can.
I don't know. I'm done.
Say whatever you want.
I'm sorry. I will cut myself off to give other people time, but thank you for letting me rant a little bit and throw a little bit out there.
No, you're perfect. Hey, no, you're perfectly fine, and we love hearing your input. If you want to keep speaking, you're more than welcome to. But if not, then we can go on to the next speaker. And you said a lot of times like men kind of speak over women as well, and that's the last thing that any of the men on here tonight want to do. If you feel like that happens, please say something to any woman on here. Please say something, because tonight is about the women that are speaking. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to say? Because we can always come back to you too. All right, no problem.
Not at this point. No, thank you though.
Thank you so much for speaking. All right. So up next we have Sarah Small and Leah Hovey. All right, ladies. So we would like to hear from you. How do you feel about how women are treated in society? If you'd like to speak about that, or Roe versus Wade, or anything that you'd like to speak about, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Let me start here. Okay, you got this, girl. All right. First thing I want to touch is I want to just speak to a couple things Jen said. First off, while that's still fresh, and just what she's saying about how speaking on as far as how women's issues affect, the trans community and the LGBT community disproportionately, it just create such disproportionate effects. I think when we did our introductions, we're here in Iowa. Currently, there is a trans sports ban in Iowa that only applies to transgender women and transgender girls, athletes in the state, where no transgender girl in the state of Iowa is allowed to play on a girls sports team in a public school at any level. They must play on a team that aligns with their assigned sex at birth. But a trans male student, a trans boy, can play on the boys football team. That's not addressed in the law at all. And that's straight up violation of Title IX. It's straight up sex discrimination. And because it's targeting transgender students, I mean, it's, been passed into law with, yes, there was the activist community, we did as much as we could, but there wasn't enough pushback because nobody cared. Nobody cared because they were trans kids, and nobody cared because they were girls. And at the end of the day, like that's what we're dealing with. It is, we can talk about all of the challenges that white upper middle class women face in society, but the reality is that when we start looking at what marginalized women face, it is just exponentially greater effects from sexism and misogyny. Exponentially. By far. At every level, when it comes to economics, education, across the board. Capitalism would not function without the unpaid labor of women. We would not have our country today without the unpaid labor of women. It just wouldn't exist. Full stop. I mean, it is totally common, myself included. I do not have a paid job because it is cheaper for me to stay home with an unpaid job than it is for me to work and pay for childcare. And I am totally open and honest. I talk about that with people all the time. I could go to work, but it would cost more for me to go to work than it would for me to stay home. So I can be a full-time activist and, you know, do things I'm passionate about and spend time with my daughter. And I love it. And I'm happy with that choice. But at the same time, that choice is made solely because of the position that women are forced into by society. That's it. Then back to like Roe and all of that. I mean, I think the other ladies have touched on a lot of, the points, like women are dying. Like, we know this. And just all of the other dominoes that will fall with the repealing of Roe. Then, you know, you see lots of memes and stuff like, oh, well, I'm going to go to Canada, you know, for my abortion. Well, you can't. The only way you could claim asylum because of Roe v. Wade is if there was not a single abortion clinic open in the entire country for you to access. That's the only thing that that's the point at which an American woman could claim asylum in another country. That's the point at which, you know, international law would kick in and say, okay, your rights are now being violated. At the point where there's no abortion access in the entire country. Well, that doesn't really make a difference when, you know, you are a poor woman in Oklahoma where currently there is no abortion at all legal in the entire state of Oklahoma for any reason at all. If you're a poor woman in Oklahoma, which is a hugely economically disadvantaged state, I'm from there originally, you can't get anywhere. You can't get to Kansas City. You know, that's a 6-hour trip and an overnight stay. And it is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you are when you are in an abusive relationship and you are working for minimum wage in a rural area? You can't leave. You can't access abortion services, even if you know that child should not exist. It doesn't matter how disadvantaged a woman is or how justifiable our reasons are. They are never more valuable than a man's autonomy. And at the end of the day, that's it. It doesn't matter how valued or how, you know, educated or how, at the end of the day, a man's value is greater than ours every step of the way. I was speaking with a friend just last week who spent decades as a domestic violence advocate, and she was letting me know, and I don't have data for this, so I don't want to claim statistics I don't actually have, but she was saying that it's the thing that of domestic violence, what that happens with domestic abusers, and she saw it just repeatedly over the years, is when there is domestic violence in a home, it is the normal thing that happens as men attack pregnancies. That's what they do. When unplanned pregnancies occur in the domestic violence relationship, men attack the pregnancies every time. We're not just talking about women who are at risk of violence. We're not just talking about women who are at risk of economic hardship or women who, you know, might not be able to go back to school. We are talking about their lives. We're talking about their children's lives, and we're talking about the future of generations. We're talking about generational trauma. So, and we're talking about the autonomy to make all of those choices.
I mean, you covered. No, you're good. This is
soapbox time.
No, do your thing, girl. Honestly, I really don't say a whole lot. on any of these things, but all I want to say to the other women on this podcast, and it's actually something Sarah said to me months back, and it's, as women, we need to plan for the worst case scenario, and we need to band together, and we need to figure out what we're going to do when it comes down to it, when the government tells us no. How are we going to say yes? And that's all I really got there.
Would anybody else like to give them some feedback about what they said? Because I feel like there was a lot that was said. Anybody else that's on this podcast right now that would like to say something?
Yes.
Okay.
You said, so I love what you said, when that we have to plan for the worst case scenario, and when they tell us no, how do we tell them yes anyways? And so like the first domestic violence shelters, the first rape centers were created by anarchists because the government would not help them. And so it is all community based and mutual aid and direct action, and being able to be there for each other and like build those community support networks where we can call each other in times of need and crisis. Like that has always been the answer, and women have been exceptionally good at that. And so like, yes. And also, pregnancy is the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship, especially the 6 months after a woman has given birth, because their attention tends to be devoted elsewhere. And so, yeah, I'm really glad you guys touched on that.
Yeah. Also, speaking of trans rights, this 11-year-old has been attacked on, and you did speak about trans rights briefly, but it's very current because this 11-year-old trans girl was attacked all over social media by the far right for the drag queen story time hour at this pub called Old Nick's in Eugene, Oregon, just for being trans. And I know Dora, as a trans woman, will be able to speak later on about how she has constantly been attacked. But yeah. Also, I'm hoping that men can learn from this and be more supportive of women who are pregnant in the future as well. You spoke up about so many amazing things, and we really appreciate that. So thank you so much. So unless there's anything else you'd like to say, Sarah and Leah, I'm gonna go on to the next speaker. So okay, so June, are you with us right now?
I am.
Okay, so I do have some questions specifically for you because you are an elder. You're from an older generation. I if you want to touch up about the other stuff, whatever you'd like to speak about, you're more than welcome to. But I did want to ask you, you were born in the late 1940s, so like during the 60s, how were women treated compared to how they are now? What kind of control did men have with laws, and you know what's changed? I know I've spoken to you briefly about some of the stuff, like you weren't able to have a credit card, and it was almost impossible for women to have any kind of abortion, and there was absolutely no abortion rights back then. Is that stuff that you'd like to speak on? I'd love to hear what you have to say, so I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let you speak.
Okay, no credit cards, and if you were married, no credit cards either, no separate checking accounts. I was a teacher back in the 60s. I graduated from college in 68. And when I graduated from high school, we had counselors. The counselors directed you towards teaching, nursing, or secretary. And so that was it. That was we were given those choices. And I was a teacher and a nurse and worked in an office. So I did all those, right? But I had, after I graduated, I taught school and I lived with a couple of women. My roommate got pregnant, and she went to New York for a back alley abortion. So that was pretty traumatic. And that kind of thing happened. And there was no support. There was a lot of shame, and it was hiding. It made me very sad to listen to Jen talk about the mental health of women, because, and I didn't really think about that part, but I feel very sad about the problems that we still are having. We had these problems before, and it's been decades. And why isn't it better? It is better, but it's not enough better for me to be pleased with the progress. And now to see Roe v. Wade just snatched away by these, I want to swear too, but see, when I was growing up, swearing was really bad. I was taught to be a nice young lady, and I wasn't supposed to swear. And men, when we played games with men, you should let them win. And we were told, if a boy is mean to you, he likes you. Well, what kind of crap is that? I don't know if they still say that or not, but I know that my mom said that to me, and my mother would listen to men before she'd listen to me. I did work in substance abuse for a while, and I remember having a discussion with my mother and my cousins, and my mom asked a question, something about alcoholism or whatever, and I had the answer because I'd worked in that field. I was a nurse. She just glossed right over me and went to my cousin, who was a pediatrician, because he was a man and he was a doctor. And what did I have to say? So that kind of thing happened to me. It was very hard. So I was talked over by my mother, who should have been on my side, right? But she's a product of her generation. And I think we just, each generation tries to improve. I think my mother would have been happy being a progressive because she had some progressive ideas, but she was very insecure about talking about them. We would have private conversations and she'd say, don't ever talk to anybody about this. And I was like, and so, I was taught to hush up. I internalized a lot of stuff, internalized things and stuffed the anger and became depressed, which is not a good thing to do. So I talked to my older sister today. I'm 76, she's 78. And I said, Kit, what were some of the things that you remember? She also became a teacher. We went to the same college and we both became teachers. She told me that she remembers women. We weren't allowed to wear pantsuits. So I don't know if that has much to do with women's rights or not, but that was like illegal until 1972. They changed the law on that. If you got pregnant, you had to resign at 5 months. Now, I did get pregnant, and at the time I wasn't teaching. I had another job, and they made me quit. And they had already passed that law that it was discrimination, that you couldn't do that, but I didn't know. So I just quit. My sister said that she was in Indiana. They went to a restaurant and it was illegal for a woman to sit at the bar in a restaurant in Indiana. So, I mean, just some crazy things. I do see progress. I see more people awake on this issue. And especially like the men, especially in this group, all of you have said you want to listen. That's great. So I do see progress in that more people are aware of this situation, more men especially, and more men are taking more equal roles in raising children. When I was married, I did everything whatever. I don't need to go into that. Anyway, I don't know what else to say right now, except the Roe v. Wade thing is just so depressing. I don't think I think all of you understand the importance of this, but a lot of people don't. Jen, you were talking about Christian nationalism and white supremacy coming together. I think that's what you said. I have friends that are very religious, very nice people, but they are so pro-choice, and I can't even talk to them. I try to talk to them, and the religion takes over. There's no common sense. It's just the religious beliefs, their dogma that they adhered to, and it's really difficult. I don't know how to get through. ERA, that's what I was going to talk about. ERA, that started a long time ago, and they could not get the enough states to ratify it, so it didn't go through in 1972. But I don't know if you were aware of it, but we have enough states as of 2020, but they haven't made an amendment because the Republicans are really fighting against this. So that should be an amendment that we have equal rights. I guess that's all I have to say for the moment.
Wow, that's a lot. I can't believe. If anybody has any feedback for her, they can go ahead and jump in.
I want to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Christine. First, I'm really, really, really so grateful that we have an elder female on the panel tonight, because I feel like we really needed this. So thank you so much, June, for joining us. I can't tell you how much I appreciate hearing from someone who was around when Roe v. Wade even, came into play, and how that changed things. And I really would love to hear more about that from someone who was alive during that time. So maybe if you feel, up to that when it's your turn again, I would love to hear that. Myself, I've just been through, is it even my turn?
Well, I was just gonna see if you had any feedback. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I don't want to cut anyone off. You were gonna be up next anyways, but yeah, I just want to see if anyone had any feedback for her. That is good feedback. Since you did ask her, June, do you have anything else to say about Roe versus Wade? How things were before Roe versus Wade? Any other remarks about it? Because Christine's kind of curious, and I think I'm curious as well.
Yeah, the fact that we were pushed into, directed towards, whatever, nursing, teaching, or secretarial, the choices were very limited. The choices were very limited because we didn't really have control over our own bodies back then. So birth control just started coming. I mean, we've had other kinds of birth control. Birth control pills just started coming in the 60s. And so when that happened, it opened up a lot more for women to be able to do things. And corporations didn't want to hire women in executive positions or important positions because they thought, well, we'd get pregnant and we'd be gone. Well, they still don't want to hire us like they should, but at least now we have birth control, and we have, I don't have to worry about the abortion issue anymore. Thank God for that. But the young women now, they've got that concern. They can't get an abortion in so many states. That really, really limits your career, your potential to grow, to be the best woman you can be. It's not all about motherhood. Motherhood is wonderful. It's a wonderful thing, but we need women doing other things. Women are smart, they're capable, and we need them. And it's that white male supremacy that is pushing back on women, and this conservative part that they don't want women in the workforce. They want us home pregnant and having our babies. That's what they wanted back in my day. It feels like they just want to push us back there again. So I'm very angry about it. Abortion is a personal thing. If you don't believe in it, don't get it, but let everybody do what they want to do, what they feel is right. It's their choice. It's not going to stop abortions. It didn't stop abortions before. There were abortions all the time, but people died. It's not going to stop abortions. Rich people can still do it. It's going to kill women. And it's just a way to suppress us. A major, major, major way. Okay, I guess that's all I have to say for now.
You're doing so good, and I think we're all just kind of sitting back and listening to what you have to say. So yeah, I'm glad things I'm glad things did get better at least. So we did have the 50 years of Roe versus Wade, and then it got overturned. And that's definitely a huge step back when it comes to women's rights.
Well, I do want to say something because things seem to happen in little pieces. It's like, oh, well, that's not so bad. What is that? There are stories about first they came for somebody and whatever. You've all heard that, but they weren't coming for me. So what did I care, kind of thing. But these things happen, and this Roe versus Wade, though, is a big leap, a big backward leap for women. But things will happen in increments, and we have to be aware, and we have to fight all the way. It just freaks me out. I'm so worried about these midterms. I know people don't like either party for different reasons. I've heard different things. They don't like capitalism, but we have what we have. And I encourage everybody to vote. And I encourage everybody to vote Democrat with all the problems that they have too. They are the best party to fight against this. Okay.
All right. And like I said, if you guys have anything else you want to say, or if you guys want to speak up at any time, feel free. So if you have something more you would like to say later on, just go ahead and speak up, and we'd be happy to hear you. So up next we have Christine. You've been here and you've been listening, and you know what some of the topics are, and there's other topics as well that are very important. But Christine, do you want to touch up more with what you've heard, or would you like to? Is there anything you'd like to speak about? The floor is yours, so I'm going to let you go ahead and talk.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I'm still trying to, I don't know if it was Mandy that said it, but like wrap my head around the whole Roe v. Wade. Like I never even learned what that was. I have lived a life not knowing what it's like to not have my rights. So I'm 46, and I've had one pregnancy, and that one pregnancy, I knew that I was dying. I'd go to the emergency room, and they would tell me, you're just dehydrated, you're malnutrition, you've got morning sickness, it's no big deal. It's your first pregnancy, you don't understand what's going on, and blah, 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 and on and on. This happened probably, I think it was three times I had gone to the emergency room in this 9 weeks. After finding out what was making me so sick, I was pregnant. But I ended up so bad, I could not ingest anything, nothing. I was losing weight by the day. It was bad. And my mom said she was worried about me. She said my eyes were sunken in. It was like I wasn't even there. The point was I was dying, and I couldn't get a doctor to listen to me. I was a young woman. I was 25. And so even after the original Roe v. Wade, there still is, the suppression by man. and I had men telling me, you know, this is just your first pregnancy. And so that plays a role too. But as far as my situation with that, my at the time boyfriend had taken advantage of me. I was passed out on medication, prescribed medication, and I could not speak for myself. So that happened to be the one time that I ended up pregnant. It was the only possibility. I knew that. Us women know. But I ended up, after talking to my mom and, you know, trying to figure this out, having so much going on with my body, I decided to go inquire about an abortion. So I go into the abortion clinic. I ended up calling, you know, making an appointment, and I went in, and I decided that's what I was going to do. And I needed to be knocked out for it because I couldn't stand the thought. Well, during my ultrasound in there, the day of my appointment, they found that they kept asking me, the girl, the technician, she kept asking me, you know, are you sure you're that far along? And I'm like, well, you know, I got pregnant on this date and this, you know, so I know this is the date that I actually had the intercourse, and this is the date that this says on the paper that I was, you know, conceived. So my fetus was, or embryo rather, was not growing anymore. It like had quit at probably 5 weeks. So, and they couldn't find a heartbeat. There was absolutely no heartbeat. She pulled in 2 more girls to check. They tried to find a heartbeat. They were looking at different variables with my uterus and everything, and, you know, with the pregnancy. And they really just came to, you know, the realization that my baby had died, and it was just causing toxicity in my body, which was in turn killing me. And they said, you don't have to pay for this. You don't have to go through with this today. You can go to the emergency department and they should be able to do the proper surgery for you. Because I miscarried, but it didn't exit my body. It was toxic. So at 9 weeks, I went ahead with that surgery because I knew with the experience I'd had in the emergency room, I knew I was dying and I knew I had limited time. I thought I have a future that I can have more children. I never did. I made sure I never got pregnant again because it took me till years later to realize and learn that what I had was similar to the same thing that some of my siblings and cousins have gone through as well, and it's hyperemesis gravidarum. So, you know, medical condition or not, my story is just one. Mine is just one story out of so many of the things that have happened. And this is just on the topic of abortion. Like, there are so many other things as far as women's rights that have been taken from us. I was in an abusive relationship when I got pregnant. This man was physically, emotionally, mentally abusive, suppressive, you name it, he was it. And all the wrong things, all the bad ways. So it's, you know, it's hard to think of what it was like, what it must have been like before we had rights. And now I had to have a hysterectomy, total hysterectomy. I don't have any of my reproductive organs anymore. So I had that done September of last year. And so, you know, it's not something that I have to worry about as far as getting pregnant or having birth control. But there are still rights that are being taken from us that don't have to do with pregnancy or abortion or, you know, and I don't fully understand all of Roe v. Wade. And I really feel like I need to be educated a lot more on it. I also want to, before I forget, I want to thank Jen for what she does. it was Jen that was the therapist.
Yeah, my video is not working, but yes.
Okay, I want to thank you for what you do. If it weren't for therapists in my life, I would not be here today. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate it, and I'm sure that you have a lot of clients that appreciate you as well. My therapist has done, the one I have now has just, it's been amazing. And I've said this before on, podcasts before, but she really has. I've worked through a lot of the things that I've gone through in life. So, but yeah, I don't really need to talk too much on it. I think that's basically the gist of it. As far as like story time, quote unquote. But yeah, I'm really happy to hear from June though, since she was, around then. And what is it like? What's it going to be like? And how is this going to get better? And I may not be in fear for myself and my own reproductive rights, but I'm in fear for those who still have their reproductive organs and are still in, those situations where, like, how are you even supposed to get birth control in these states now? Can you? Like, what? I don't even know. This is it. This is insanity to me. This is complete and total tyranny. It's it really gets me upset. Let me tell you that right now. If I would not have my rights, I would not be here today. So I am grateful that I have my rights. So what about all the women today that have reproductive organs that don't? And don't even get me started on, the trans and their lives and how this impacts their lives. I'm not going to be the one to speak on that. So, but that's all I've got for right now. I'm glad we have some new people here. I'm glad that you're allowing the women to speak. I feel like that's important for us. All women, we all we should have the right. So I appreciate that we get the right. You're welcome. So yeah, I appreciate that we have a chance to speak on this and without interruption. It's great. So, all right.
Did you hey June, did you have any feedback for her?
I'm just very glad that you're here, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. And I feel so bad for all the young women that are going to be faced with this awful, the Roe v. Wade. It's basically, you have a choice until the age of till the baby's viable, could be viable outside the womb. And now what they've done is send it back to the states, and these states are horrible. The laws are getting worse and worse. 13 of them had trigger laws to go into place, and now I don't even know how many states have laws against abortion. Here in Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer they've put it off for a while, but we've got a proposal on this in the midterms to put it into our Constitution that abortion will be legal up to the age of viability, which would be just like Roe v. Wade. And I sure hope it passes here. And it needs to be a national thing. Nobody has a right to tell a person what they can do with their body. I know it involves a potential baby. That's what they always say. It's a potential baby. And that's true. It is a potential baby, but at 6 weeks, I think it's the size of a grain of rice or something. So it's a potential baby, but it's a living human woman that maybe has other children or whatever reason. She doesn't have to have she doesn't have to tell her reason. But anyway, sorry, I'm going on. I'm just glad you're here, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And I feel bad for all the young ladies out there that are dealing with this. I didn't want to see this history repeated, but it's being repeated.
Thank you.
here in Lansing, outside of Planned Parenthood, we have people coming to protest Planned Parenthood on a daily basis, and I feel like that probably makes a lot of women uncomfortable. I would think, um, as well, and it's already hard enough. I can't. I mean, I can't even imagine. I'm a man, so I can't even imagine how hard it would be to have to go through an abortion. I can't even imagine that. So I mean, I have sympathy for that situation. Um, did you want to say anything else, Christine? If not, then I'm going to go on to Dora and let her speak. Christine.
I'm good.
Okay. So Dora, are you with us right now?
Hello.
Hey Dora. So we did speak up about trans rights, and as a trans woman, and you did speak before about how people were telling you to, um, people were being very mean to you on social media, and you've been attacked before, for being a trans woman. Um, would you like to speak about any of the other subjects, or would you like to speak about trans rights, or what happened today in
I
Eugene?
feel
The floor is yours. I'll
I
shut up.
feel I could hit all of the above in one little thing here, maybe,
Okay.
hopefully. So one of the things that's really affected by this whole overturning of Roe v. Wade is it does actually directly affect transgender and other LGBT rights. Specifically in the case that if you're female and you are transitioning to male, you aren't given the rights that you would be as a male, but you are at the same time not acknowledged with the rights of a female. And that gets even worse once females' rights are taken away. Secondarily, the same happens the other way. We lose when we decide to transition. I've had situations where trying to explain how to figure out how to explain this. Being denied by a rather right-wing state paternity test rights because I identify as female. Like, this is the kind of stuff that they'll do. They're against you transitioning, but if you are transitioned, okay, fine then. We're just going to twist the rules around. And it limits a lot of things. Roe v. Wade does more than just abortion, right? It also goes into privacy under 14th Amendment, which brought into the fact that all persons, period, are to be given certain inalienable rights. And that includes women. That's how it is connected through and came into effect in the first place and was part of a big push for women's rights. This is not long after the women's suffrage movement happened that this ended up being brought in. Like, now we're 50 years later and we just went back into the same crap, and it's hurting a lot of people on a lot of fronts. You're seeing points of outright denial of medical care in some instances. In Texas right now, if you go get Plan B, you're guilty of murder legally, and they have a death penalty there. Like, that's a reality for women today. As a member of the trans community, we are the people that are part of the coordination for trying to make sure that there's as fucked as it is to have to say this, an underground railroad to get these women to safe places so that they can even come to the decision, let alone make it, where they have the options, the freedom to proceed as they wish. And it's a very slippery slope, because as Justice Thomas himself said when this happened, when it got overturned, he was coming for gay rights and contraceptive rights next. From there, it's just a quick little step to being back to the pre-14th days. Like, it landslides. We've already got a pebble rolling. We need to grab that sucker before it starts an avalanche. Today I witnessed something very, very sad. A group of people, men, women, LGBT, having a story time where drag queens read books, and a bunch of people show up to assault and ridicule the people throwing this event, calling it grooming because having LGBT community around children is automatically grooming them to force them to change genders and a bunch of other stuff, and it's child abuse. And like this is the kind of rhetoric, and they wouldn't even listen to the concept of, you guys realize that y'all are here screaming all of this stuff about how is a bunch of sexualization happening. Nobody else is. You guys are here doing this, and you came here to assault people, but you're talking about how you're here to protect people. You're traumatizing children and women and calling people who are transgender horrible, horrible things just because they're trans. Just because a drag queen is a drag queen. And yet you don't look at your own groups who predominantly are the lion's share of the people that do that kind of crap. And this is the kind of hate that is put towards the trans community and women, be they born women transitioned to men, or born men transitioned to women, or cisgendered. It doesn't matter. It still ends up being the same people that show up to that are the same people that show up to Planned Parenthood. And I'm not even talking as like, same kind of people. I mean, literally physical, you can name them and hold their picture up people. These are the same people that physically assault people going into Planned Parenthood. What Planned Parenthood did to help the movement and to help people to have rights, women to have rights that they are otherwise denied in society, is amazing. I'm not too sure about the organization because there's, for a totally different night, totally different conversation I can go into later. But what they've done is great. The fact that they have to exist is horrible. And the fact that people get assaulted, sometimes just going in for basic medical shit that has nothing to do with getting an abortion, and they have to be brutalized, is absolute bullshit. The fact that we're having to have a show like this right now is absolute bullshit, because we shouldn't have ever been put in this situation. And it's part of a very obvious agenda that they're not even hiding anymore. They're trumpeting it from the rooftops. And honestly, if I had a uterus or identify as female and live in the United States of America, I would think we should be terrified and ready to fight for our very lives, because that may be where things are going. Sure looks like it to me. And that's about all I got to say on this. And thank you all so much for telling your stories and being here to help educate people as to the reality around us, to uplift you guys into the light so that people can see what it is, the reality we're looking at, from someone who's seen it with their own eyes. I thank you very much for speaking tonight, all of
you. Yeah, thank you, Dora. And if, like I said, if anybody else has feedback for Dora that would like to speak, they can. I just, yeah, the whole situation today in Eugene was really sad. And I just think that child is so brave to stand up to all the people that were bullying her, and to go on and do it anyways. And I think that's such a heartwarming sign of bravery. So yeah, it really made me happy to see that. Anyways, once again, thank you for speaking. If there's anything else you want to say, go ahead and speak up as well.
Dora, thank you. I'm sorry that you had to go through all of what you've been through, and I've heard you talk about some things before, and I think it's really sad, and I just want to tell you that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for standing up. I'm proud of you for how brave you've been, and I feel emotional right now because we talked on bullying last time, but like I just feel for you, and just what that must be like. And I just feel like you're so brave for coming forward, and every week, you talk about things and you're open about it and honest. And I really, I applaud you for that, because it's got to be hard. I can't even imagine, honestly. But anyway, I just want you to know that I don't know you personally, but I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you, and thank you. I think we could learn a lot from Dora.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if Dora doesn't have anything else to say, feel free to speak up if you want to say anything else later on. I'm gonna go ahead and go on to David, our friend up there in Canada. I wanted the men to speak last, because this is about women tonight, and we need to hear from them, our matriarchs, as David would put it, and then give feedback. So David, is there anything you'd like to give feedback wise?
I'll be very brief for once. Yeah, I'll be brief for once. Thank you. David Allen Moon from Weewaikai Nation. I live in Tlyman Territory, up in Cothet, up in so-called colonial British Columbia, so-called colonial Canada. I come from the Kwagil Nation, and we follow our rules and our customs through our matriarchs. So with all due respect, I'll start off and end off with what I'm going to say very quickly, that I'm going to reserve my time to listen to our matriarchs, as our tradition also propels us to do so. So I thank you all for enlightening us men, and hoping to change this world and be more respectful to everybody. And I'm here to learn how to attain equality for everybody, and that's why I'm going to let you guys take the floor again, and any more information from our matriarchs is the most important part of the movement, in my opinion.
Hey, so thank you for being such a good ally, and waiting to listen, David, and James and Charles, all the men that are in here. Thank you. James, do you have any feedback, or is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, I really think that it's great that we've had so many female participants this time. I wasn't sure if I could get anybody to join, and they were a little skeptical getting out there and talking about it in public. So I'm really grateful to hear the stories from all the matriarchs, the lovely ladies that have joined us this evening. I really don't, as a man, I was raised by mostly women. Didn't really have any father figures in my life until I was a little bit older. But my ethics, morals, and values come from the teachings of the ladies, and I stand here wholeheartedly in support of their rights, and they can't take our rights if we don't let them. They're not our rights for them to give. There are our inherent rights. So keep up the good fight, and it's been a pleasure being here listening to all of the stories, and I hope to see you next time. And don't forget, you can always friend me on Facebook. Just send me a message, and I can friend up. Lastly, I'm an activist for human rights, social justice, environmental awareness, political reform, civil rights, huge platform. So thank you all.
All right, thank you as well for being an ally. And Chaz, would you like to give any feedback to these ladies, or is there anything else you'd like to say about what we spoke on tonight?
I just really want to thank everybody for coming on here and spreading awareness, education, because I think a lot of it is I barely understood my ancestors' fight, and getting to understand even just like my mother's, my grandma's, my aunts, and just understanding that even that, you know, my mom had a different fight than, let's say, my dad's sister, which one is black and one is white, you know, because in, you know, 1920, women were given the right to vote. You know, it was, everybody's had a fight. You know, they say that America's this great country, but anything that we've ever wanted in life, we've always had to fight for, regardless if it's fighting for justice, fighting for the right to be able to be who you are. It's always been a fight. And it's always been a political fight at that. Something that none of this really should be, because it wasn't even until 1965 that black women were even allowed to vote. And I think that gets bypassed so much in a lot of this. And what I see personally is, like, every couple of years, you know, we vote, we have an election, and it seems like certain issues get spotlighted more than what really is the realm. Because, like, I sit here, and as a black man, I fear for my daughters, and not so much just from losing her rights to be who she wants to be, but the fact of it is that depending on which area she lives in, is she going to be safe? Depending on which area she lives in, what kind of education is she going to receive? You know, what kind of job is she going to be able to get? And I think about that for my sons as well. But more of my daughters, because of the simple fact of there's other people, other genders, other races that have a harder fight than, let's say, me, myself. Not saying that the black man's fight isn't hard, but I fully don't understand the woman's fight, regardless if that's a trans woman, if that is a black woman, if that's a Jewish woman, if it's a Russian. I think that goes for a lot of us, that we don't fully understand. And I know people say that it gets uncomfortable. I don't think something that we don't understand should ever be uncomfortable, because how can you be uncomfortable of something you don't understand? You know what I'm saying? I know there could be a fear, but that's honestly of what I see of it. And it's honestly, I think of it, if everybody could just come sit down and let's leave the stereotypes out of it. Let's leave the labels. Let's just have open human being conversations and understand that, yeah, we should listen to our elders, but understand that our elders have to know that there's a better way of life, that we've grown. This isn't the 70s anymore. This isn't the 50s. And just because we want to go back to family values. That doesn't mean we want to go back to, let's say, traditional. We just want that family nucleus of, regardless if it's two women, regardless if it's two men. And I'm not trying to bring up men in this or of anything, because I really definitely am not trying to take away from women. I'm not trying to take away from queens at all. I honestly would love to see more of this. I would love to see more of, honestly, and I'm mad as hell that I missed Leah on here, because I asked Leah to be on here, and that's how Sarah came to be on here. And I thank you, Sarah, for coming and blessing us tonight. There's so much more that we could even get into this with June, because everybody's, even, her being the elderly, the knowledgeable one in the room that has experienced more, I would say, with the way that legislation has maybe been geared, or that has been written over the years, and how we have, because really, honestly, my view on it is, if you see anything that has gone on in history, history repeats itself. They always say that violence is, you can't fight fire with fire. But I know damn well, of knowing back in the history of women's suffrage movement, that there was a lot of violence, and it didn't start with the women. It was directed at the women that were that wanted to just vote, that wanted rights to be seen as equals. And I really sit and wonder, and to say that, yeah, we've came a long way in America, but have we really gone that far? I really sit here and wonder, because I see all these headlines of slavery is on the books, or is on the ballot this November. If people were paying attention, it's always been there in most states. And honestly, I think it's more of listening to everybody, because everybody has a story, knowing the history of how did we get here? Why did we get here? I think is way more powerful. And I think that's how we move forward. It's not erasing the past, it's learning from the past and going forward, because I hear that word progressive, but everybody's so scared to progress. And I'm going to say everybody, because it doesn't, regardless if you see the world as a progressive, there's even some things that progressive people see as uncomfortable. And because I consider myself a conservative, but politically, I'm neither a Democrat or a Republican. I just want to go back to a time where I seen in my eyes that was conservative to me, where that meant community, that it was everybody looked out for each other. You had that big mama, everybody, if somebody was doing something wrong, they said it. There wasn't going back in the house and making a post on Facebook or Twitter. It was actually getting in that person's face and like, you know what, you're wrong. And that's where we need to get back to. And that's why I love hearing others' journeys, other stories, because everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own truth. And that doesn't make it right or wrong. It's, you can't speak on something that we've never had to walk in that person's shoes. And until we can learn that life perspective, yeah, I'm just rambling at this point. But I just really, really want to thank everybody: June, Christine, Dora, Sarah, Leah, put my glasses on, Mandy, especially Mandy. And I'm sorry that I missed. I'm gonna have to go back and replay it, because Mandy especially, I know I really watched a couple of, especially leading up to tonight, watching your post and seeing, I really wanted to learn. And I'm sorry, I'm sitting here just blabbling or whatever, but I want to thank you because honestly, there's people, and I know a lot of people will say that you don't have a voice because maybe your skin color. I say, fuck that. Everybody has a voice, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your religion, your background. We all have a voice, and it's equal. And that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that was spotlighted tonight, especially because I know that, being from Minneapolis, I've seen a lot of people get shut down, Leah especially, and that's why I wanted to give her this space, this opportunity to honestly shine, because I feel like everybody that's on here tonight, especially on the female forum, has been silenced to some degree. And I honestly want to make sure that never happens ever again, that you are seen in the same value as your male counterparts. And I think that goes for everybody that is with Family Soup TV, with Dame Move TV, with the Leon Block, that we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard equally. And with that, I hope everybody has a great night.
Yeah, thank you for your
Thanks,
support,
Chaz. Thanks, Shane.
Chaz. As someone, yeah, and thank you for clarifying some things, and that's some really good feedback. As an ally, it's really good to uplift these women, and their voices as much as we can, and thank you for that. So we did have somebody join just now. Also, I did want to say that I just got word that a pregnant woman here in Lansing was just shot in the stomach, and it's really sick. And we were speaking about how pregnant women are in danger, and that just happened shortly after we spoke about it. Anyways, so Josie, are you here? You said that you are a mother of
Yeah,
4 children.
I'm here.
And you've dealt with some abuse. Would you like
And
to
I was just
speak
gonna
about
say,
that if you're
with
comfortable?
technically what you said, I would actually say I have a friend and technically an ex that has dealt with the same type of situation of someone being pregnant with twins, and being basically drugged and dying. So I don't know. I don't really know. I would say being a female and actually having kids and everything else, especially at a young age, depending on who you are, is very difficult. And depending on who your friends are and who you keep closest to you, it can end badly. And you end up getting thrown to different areas, so you're not near anyone that actually knows you, which at times can be scary as fuck. But I don't really know exactly what to say at the moment. I'm in a pissed off mood because of people and things, and yeah, has to do with the subject, but I'm not awake enough because I've been sleeping during the day and being up at night because it's easier. And I don't have to deal with as many people in the area I'm in, so they don't even know I'm here half the time.
So,
well, thank you for being
can
here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So Josie, I'm really glad you joined. Some of the things that we've talked about, I know you missed a lot of the beginning, but some of the things that we've talked about have been the Roe v. Wade, our rights as women, and let's see, what are some of the things we've covered? So June has been our elder who's been here. That's one thing. So someone who was around when, 50 years ago when Roe v. Wade happened. so that was really good to hear from her. I hope we can hear some more if there is more that she can talk about. But yeah, Josie, I'm really, really glad that you joined. And being mad is fine. It's what you do with it that matters. So kudos to you.
Yep, that's why I'm gonna draw or paint or something outside, because it rained and it seems like a good idea. The world's not as dry anymore. And I don't feel like sleeping.
Oh yeah, fair enough. I'm the same way though. My sleep schedule is completely reversed, so I feel you on that one, Josie. But yeah, so some of the topics that we discussed were Roe versus Wade, how that's ended, how that's was overturned by the Supreme Court, and how it set back women's rights. We're also talking about trans women. We're also talking about how pregnant women are in danger. But yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to say, feel free.
Sadly, I wish I was more focused. Having ADHD and trying to think on this topic to say anything is very difficult, since yeah, I wake up at this hour, but I take my meds at a time. I take them in the morning, so then at night when I'm woke up, I'm a scatterbrain. So it's not as easy. But I was gonna say, yeah, there's a lot technically with my whole family for the background of this that goes back to some of the times you're talking about, because my family was somewhat involved in it, women and others as well. But it's a whole messed up, long, freaking thing that me not being awake and all over the place wouldn't be able to explain or even talk about right now.
All right, no problems. All right, so yeah, if anybody else would like to say anything, and this is more so directed towards the woman. Sorry, guys. I know Jen said she could talk for hours, and it looked like your head was you're spinning with ideas and thoughts, or any other ladies that would like to speak before we end this. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Feel free.
I just wanted to just add a couple comments on just the loss of autonomy that women experience surrounding pregnancy that I don't know if men are really aware of. The first thing being, I think it was June that mentioned, that in the workplace, it's often thought, women, we don't get promoted because it's thought, oh, they're just going to go have babies. And, she had talked about that as, being true back, in the past, but that I've found that to be very true still today. I mean, that's still very much the attitude in the corporate world. And, when we talk about then, oh, well, there's birth control. Well, birth control is not 100% effective. It also has significant side effects. And it also it doesn't last very long. I mean, depending on the options. I mean, they can have significant impacts for women on our health. And this is a fact. I don't know if men know this really, that women who are single and do not have children, they are not eligible for permanent birth control. It is extremely rare and extraordinarily difficult to find a doctor that is willing to perform a tubal ligation or permanent sterilization on a woman that is single and unmarried with no children. They will not do it because the assumption is we will change our minds, that we will meet a man that will want children, and that our hypothetical future husband's wishes outweigh what we want at 20, 21, 22. Like, you cannot get that done. That's prevented. We can't make that choice. So we're stuck with hormonal birth control options or options that fail. And I think Mandy's made the comment they're still doing forced sterilizations on women of color. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That is a separate, entirely different issue. we could go down that whole avenue. Like, I'd love for you to speak more on that, Mandy. I'm specifically in this case talking about when women are choosing and asking their OBGYNs specifically for the choice for their own self. Yeah, totally different issue. Yes, that's something definitely we could speak at great length about. But
That's
then,
actually what I was kind of pointing out earlier with the whole Planned Parenthood thing, was exactly that subject.
yes,
should have a show about
absolutely.
that.
But then the other thing is, like, if we want to talk about, like, I have a daughter, so like we want to talk about like during pregnancy, then even during like a chosen pregnancy, once you get past the point of, you know, viability, past the point of like when you would want to have an abortion, the medical model that we have for pregnancy now in like OBGYN care, like what it does, how doctors approach like maternity care in the United States is they prioritize the health of the fetus over the health of the mother. That is how care decisions are decided, like at every level in maternity care throughout the US hospital system. So we have lost our autonomy from the moment we're pregnant. Myself, I had some serious health problems. I had serious health problems while I was pregnant, and I was very close to my due date, and I was in the hospital, admitted, like, you know, in intensive care, begging the doctors, please deliver this baby so you can treat me, because they couldn't do anything for me. And they refused, because the health of the fetus was more important than my own health. All of my autonomy is gone. And it's that way for every woman, up until the moment where our husbands or partners are asked, do you want to save the baby or save, you know, your wife? But really what they're asking in that question is, do you want us to switch to saving your wife? Because we've been focused on only saving the baby this entire time. So I think men really need to realize that our autonomy is always second when it comes to issues of like pregnancy and reproductive health. It's always been second since the medical model of OBGYN care was created. Since it transitioned from like the midwifery standard of care to OBGYN and like medical standard of care. That's when that shift happened.
I just wanted to point out something that I think is hilarious. Oh, I'll get to it in just a second. But all of these people that are making all of these arguments against choice, the pro-lifers, they all ultimately, if you get them talking long enough, come back to the same thing. Oh, it's God's will. It's God's this. I just want to point out for any of them that might be listening right now, open your Bibles. Do this real quick. Google it. Pull it up. Find your Bible and read it yourself if you don't believe me. God, according to your book, your God said, life begins at first breath drawn after birth. It is not a baby until it's crying. So don't give us any of that bullshit argument anymore. Come back with something solid. Sorry about that. Continue.
I wanted to go off of what Sarah was talking about for medical care when things changed, when midwifery like went out of style, just the way that we treat women in the medical profession, especially stereotypically female dominated healthcare, if it's nurses, midwives, therapists, or even like going to the labor positions for women versus labor positions that are stereotypically male. You know, they're underpaid, overworked, very little support, especially organizationally. But also, when it comes to medicine, doctors don't believe women. They think that when we say that we're in pain, it is just a figment of our imaginations. And so they are far more likely to underdiagnose or misdiagnose women than they are men. They also don't necessarily look for the same symptoms. And this is intersectional because, especially with marginalized communities, that is like exponentially worse. But you know, we've been talking a lot about pregnancy because this, like, it is a huge topic, and it is relevant and recent. But whether or not you get pregnant, like, women's bodies are not treated the same as men's bodies. Women's minds are not treated the same way as men's minds. Women's actions and decisions and behaviors and leadership styles are not treated the same way as men's. And even just looking at the way that people refuse to vote for women, like, it's not a system that I necessarily support, but what if she's on her period? What if she's emotional, despite the fact that men have started so many wars out of anger and small dick syndrome? Like, sorry, but it's really frustrating to, or I just wanted to point out, like, all these other pieces of women's issues. Like, it is all related, and it affects literally every part of life for everybody. And it also, like, even if you look at with emotions, how it affects men and not being able to connect with other men, not being able to, like, show emotions, suicide rates, like, thank you for letting us have this conversation. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to be as profane as you'd like. Also, Josie wanted to say something, give some feedback. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I am a complete insane person on all of this because, yeah, I'm a female, but in a sense, I have more male friends than female friends. And I would say with the pregnancy thing and some females saying that guys don't have a connection or a bond or anything like that until afterwards, and they think of some things, even though my situations have gotten messed up because of others influencing them. But I would have to say, even though some females are going to say I'm wrong, but males take a loss or anything happening to a woman or a child just as hard, if not harder, than a female actually does in all actuality. Yes, we have more connection and everything else, but they think deeper into it because they can disattach from themselves. We can't. So in a way, I would say that's why animals are better, because they fight or they basically protect each other and don't cause all the nonsense that humans do. Because we're basically, a person is smart, but people are dumb.
That's facts right there. I think people misunderstood something. We didn't get the brains in the universe. We got the thumbs.
Love that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll speak up on this because I want to touch base on it with what Josie said about men having an attachment to children before birth, that they take things harder. She's 100% correct with that, but there's another side to that, and this is something that I don't talk about, I don't share, but I'm going to get vulnerable for this conversation. So I have a son. He is about to be 4 years old. I was in a relationship with his father. His father is very narcissist, abusive as hell. The entire pregnancy, that kid wasn't his. If any of the females he was cheating on me with, asked that ain't his baby. I'm lying about the whole thing. When I was pregnant with my child, when I first found out I was pregnant, I knew at the time that I was with somebody that
this is going to be hell. I had made a mistake. He had left me during the pregnancy, and I strongly considered getting an abortion. But at the same time, this man, I loved him. It was his firstborn child, and I knew deep down that like he was excited to have this baby, right? And so my empathy for the fact that he had a connection to this baby stopped me from wanting to get an abortion, because I did not want to bring a child into this world to go and my child have to go through the things that I knew inevitably he'd have to go through having a narcissistic father. And to really shed light on this, I have not seen my child. This man has a lot more money than me. His family where I'm from has a lot more influence than I do. With, you know, they rub elbows with the people in the higher ups. I have not seen my child in over a year, and the thing that the last time I saw my child, I told his father not to use the N-word around my kid, or even to teach that vocabulary to him. And I have not seen my child. So I personally, when I was pregnant with my child early on, wanted to abort to avoid my child coming into a world and being raised by a family that I knew was very toxic and would only inflict trauma onto his life. My empathy for the situation and for the fact that his father had a connection to him is what stopped me from receiving that abortion. So with that being said, that really we can really touch base back to conservative white males and white supremacy, because it all runs the same into that subject. So how do we approach, you know, how do we have empathy for men who have connections for children, but also use these children as chess pieces in their own game against women? That's all I got.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of what I went through with all of my kids. Some were worse than others. Technically, all of them have had issues, but it's kind of one of those things. They've got the connection, and two of mine were people's first kids. So it's kind of those damned if you do, damned if you don't, and have to pick your battles with it. I would say that's what I go through every day. I see mine once in a while. My youngest, I only see her in pictures. And he basically did the same thing, but in all actuality, it was because he was scared how others were going to react, not himself. That's the weird things with people with that disorder in general, or any mental health disorder as a male. Their first thought is, I don't know how other people are going to react to me having a connection to a child when I basically don't like anyone and I'm mean to everyone else, or people are mean to me. They don't know how to handle it. So it kind of screws up everything.
So yeah, with that, I mean, you're not wrong, and you hit the nail on the head there. You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You know, but you know, when it comes to women's rights, at the end of the day, I firmly believe that a mother knows best, and only a mother will know what's best for her cub. And I mean, this is all personal belief that, you know, situations like that, I feel like men shouldn't have a say. As women, we shouldn't allow a man that we all know is literally narcissistic and uses those things as a control mechanism for the woman. We can't sit there and act like that even matters in subjects like this, because at the end of the day, like, look at all of the hell you've gone through, you know, because a man wants to control you.
Yeah, but then there's the flip side of it. Us women, when we're pregnant or have our period of all, we can be controlling, possessive, and all of that. So it does go hand in hand. But then again, in a sense, when you have to deal with a male or a female, in a sense, it could be both, even though it's more on females, but I would say either way, if a misdiagnosis or someone's not getting help or therapy or actually having communication with anyone in the world, then it's hard because then neither side can heal from it, or we can't heal from it and do what we need to do to actually better ourselves in a sense, because someone else has messed with our brain to the point that we can't think clearly. Yeah, we do know what's right, but we have to do a lot more to actually fix it. But then again, so does a male.
So I'm gonna kind of move forward with the conversation because this is just it. I don't want to get too far into it and take over the mic here. But Mandy in the chat, she made a really strong point where she said that trying to accommodate my ex-husband's feelings cost me my daughter's life. And that is something that I live with every single day. And I genuinely fear knowing the person I had my child with and knowing my child is in his care. I fear constantly that because of his addiction issues and his own personal struggles, me accommodating his feelings, I pray to God every day that I'm not the mother that has to wake up to find out that my child is dead. And so with that, I'm just going to give the mic back because I'm done.
I just want to add a little bit of data that kind of highlights the issue I think that we're all really getting at here. And it's that, the stereotype is, oh, moms know best, and, single mothers, that we're the big, population, when there's divorce or there's separation. But the data shows that when men pursue custody, they win. Overwhelmingly, men win custody over women. They're more likely to get custody. That's what the data is. It's just that men don't step up and try. That's why there appears to be more single mothers. And that's it. But then yet when they do go to court, they win. They still win.
I would like to take this moment to give a word on our not sponsors, the male contraceptive community. There's more things than just condoms, boys. You too can get an invasive surgery just like a woman.
That's also reversible.
Yeah, that's a thing. It's a reversible surgery.
And it's outpatient, right? And pretty quick.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Just a day or two.
You call it, you schedule, you go in, they put you on ice for a few minutes, snip you up, send you with a special underwear with an ice pack. Take it easy for a couple of days. Your boss knows to give you a chair with a cushion. Kind of shit. It's super cushy, super laid back, super exactly the opposite that what you guys have to go through.
That's what I wanted to talk about, is that birth control, because it's been traditionally on the woman. All of these states that are having these laws against abortion, do they go after the men? No, they don't go after the men. And there's a discrepancy too in that we don't get birth control paid for sometimes, but Viagra is paid for. I don't know who was talking about the medical. I think Sarah. I think that was Sarah talking about the medical discrepancies. That's why we need to have more women get into the medical. It's dominated by men, as so many things are. Another study, when you're talking about different ways, they do studies on men. They studied men and heart attacks, and they learned all about the symptoms and the signs of heart attacks. But until they did studies on women, they didn't know that a lot of women were having heart attacks, and they had different symptoms. They're very unusual, but they need to do more studies on women. So it's discriminatory in that respect too.
We also don't give the same kind of emphasis to things like PMDD, right? With the premenstrual disorder because it's just quote unquote hormones, and it also gives us that excuse to be able to minimize and invalidate what a woman says. Oh, you're just hormonal. I hope you feel better. And
Oh yeah, it's the mental health too. Yeah, the word hysterical. Women get hysterical. I had a friend that
I was sorry to interrupt, but I'm actually gonna say peace out on this subject. But if you guys actually think about it and look into it, where when there's a will, there's a way, and technically being a female and going through a shitload of stuff on my own and with a male and helping a male get through it and helping females get through it. If you push through and continue looking and not complain that one side has it easier than another in a sense, it gets figured out and it all works out in the end. But yeah, good night, everyone. Peace.
Well, I would actually say that it would be better to tell your point of view because it differs. We're not trying to have an echo chamber. We're trying to have an open debate from different perspectives. Please, by all means, I would love to hear your side of this.
Or I think she left the chat.
Yeah,
she left.
And I think that there is a big difference between saying that, like, between focusing on women's issues and saying that men don't matter. Right? Because I don't think that any of the women here would be like, you know what, men have everything so easy and they don't face any challenges at all. I think that like honesty and communication and empathy is important on both sides. But honestly, like sometimes it's lives are at stake, whether it's your own life or the life of your kid. And feelings and emotions change. It's why people break up. And so one person can walk away and the other person really can't. And so I'm sorry if anybody feels like your emotions, like I'm framing your emotions as not important if that's the way I came across. But also, I think my life is more important than somebody's feelings. I think my son's life is more important than somebody's feelings. And I can't apologize for that, right? Like we're here so that we can make everybody's lives better. And it has been shown repeatedly that when we listen to people who are oppressed, when we listen to marginalized communities, and we try to answer those questions and find those solutions, that everybody benefits. So it's not just about us, it is about everybody. That's how this world works.
I agree. I don't know if she thought I'm not against men. I love men, but it's just that women have, that they have dominated different fields, and so they see it from their perspective. So, we just have to get into those fields and open it up, like the health issues.
I haven't felt like any like male bashing or anything, but I had to say this because I did feel like I live in Minnesota, and like laws are different. I think people need to understand that as well. Because in Minnesota, you don't have any say, any rights, or anything to the child if you're not married. You got to go to court, or you got to sign a parental recognition form for you to have any say. Just because you're on a birth certificate, that doesn't give you the rights to do anything with your child here in Minnesota. And I think that's when we know better, we do better. And for me, it's knowing our rights is a very powerful thing. Very, 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 very powerful thing. Because I don't know who said it. I think it was either Jen or Sarah. But they brought up the fact of by data that men when go to court usually come out on top. Now, when you dig deeper into that, the data, a lot of that is misconstrued too. It's just like with where they say that more black men are killed by police, which it's it's true, but it's not. It's that we're a minor number, and I think I'm probably rambling because the data part got too long.
The difference between per capita versus
Right.
actual
Right, because it is being
the black community per capita versus white community, but the overall numbers are actually inversed when you get into the totals.
right. So it's because it's like, just speaking on I can only speak for my own personal journey, but like the fight that I've had to go through just to even see my kids, because of the simple fact of, like, I know a lot of men in my situation, especially in Minnesota, like, we don't have no problems paying child support. But damn, they're gonna put a warrant out for me missing one payment. Can they put a warrant out for her for allowing me not to see my son or my children? Like, I think that sometimes the system is, and I can only speak for Minnesota, because Minnesota, you'll hear a lot, is a woman's state, because during the 90s and the 2000s, you had a lot of single mothers moved to Minnesota because of our welfare system, because of our Section 8, because of our MFib, the programs. Yeah, it is screwed up. And who jumped in? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm reading the chat. I didn't mean to jump in on nobody. But I'll leave it.
It varies from state to state very dramatically. And even in more recent history, like the state of Oregon used to be what was called a mommy state. Now it's a daddy state, because a lot of guys who were actually good guys were getting fucked over by a gender dynamic in the system that's part of the way it's designed. Like I said, it ain't broken, it's working just fine. But they ended up talking about the fact that, hey, we're actually doing good in our lives and got our shit together. She's on crack. Can we please get our fucking children? And the dynamic shifted, and now it's actually more male centric, and a lot of states are doing that. We really need to get off the gender dynamic of it as a subject altogether and just look at, well, how are the two people doing as humans? Human A is doing really well. Human B is a hot mess. Or both humans are doing good. Or both humans are horrible. We need to find a different situation. Like, it needs to be looked at that way. But instead, our society is always bound up on division points, gender, race, politics. When in reality, it's always ever truly been class. Because none of this shit affects the people at the top. They can pass all the laws they want and then live in their own little world with its own rules, or lack thereof. They got the money to do that. Really, these are problems for us. See? And exactly as she said right there. When you got some, like it's been said already, people with money, people with connections and power, they can get around that system. It comes down to that, simply and plainly.
Yeah. James, you said that you wanted to say something. I wanted to bring that up before you forgot. What was that you wanted to say?
Oh, hey.
Thanks for waiting.
So many things. No problem. So many things pass by, that I want to comment on, and from the bottom of my heart, it's been a great conversation, and I really would like to see more women participating on a consistent basis with us. It was great to have all of them invited, and I know that it's a team effort. Myself being raised by women, I understand the matriarchy. I can cry in public as a man. There's a lot of things that are different about me, and wholeheartedly support women's rights. But again, my big focus in these participating conversations is what can we do to solve the problems, that implement the solutions to the problems, because a lot of the things that the lady said that I completely agree with. There's a lot of marginalization that goes on. Myself as a man, I fought for my child. In my opinion, it's better that he went with his mother. So although there's a dynamic that's been lost between father and son, haven't seen him in many years. Try not to get emotional on this, and it's a heartbreaker for somebody that's has empathy. Myself, I'm torn between what to do, and sometimes it is best just to walk away. I hope he has a good life, and he'll always be my son. On the other hand, here we are discussing these things, and to get the issues out in the open and talk about things that are personal is very hard for a lot of people to do. That's why we have people with maybe no show, because getting yourself out in the public forum can have a lot of backlash, ridicule, as some of you know, and we won't be naming names, myself included, that you become a target, and it's very difficult in today's society to live the life you want to live and be happy. And I want to get along with everybody, and everybody has their point of view, and they're entitled to it. They're also entitled to their rights and way of life and their own body, and their own families. It is not to be condoned in any way that because they're different, that they should be ostracized or whatnot. And so wholeheartedly standing in solidarity with the women's movement, women's rights. Let's see if we can't build on this, and hope to see you ladies again on another chat. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
So would any of the we got to make sure that we're giving all the ladies here ample time to speak, and I want to hear from any woman that would have anything else that they'd like to say.
I mean, I wanted to comment on a few things that were said over the whole thing. One being like the difference in medical care for men and women. My male partner got a vasectomy a few months ago, and like even the way that he was treated there was so much different than I have ever been treated in any medical situation. Like, they were joking with him and like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And like, nothing that has ever been a choice for me. He ever asked if I was sure that I wanted to do something. It was not joking. I did not get anything, for nerves or anything like that. And it wasn't what I had expected. And, I'm not complaining that he was treated that way. I think it helped ease his nerves in the whole situation, but also, having your male sexual partners get vasectomies isn't even like that effective of a birth control for women, because that only prevents pregnancies through consensual sex. Like, any encounter I have with a man at this point could be a fucking death sentence, depending on how the laws change in my state. And it should never be that way. Our rights need to be federally protected like they were. Another thing that I wanted to comment on was the family values. Like, I guess that's got to be different for everybody. For me, that's like one of those like dog whistle phrases that people use, because I was raised basically in an evangelical cult by like what would be considered now ultra conservative people who are, you know, covert racist, covert misogynist, and to me, like, what was family values was just bigotry being passed down under the guise of family values. So I don't know. To me, the family unit was just something that was created in by the means of genocide of other cultures through child protective services, taking kids out of multi-generational homes, which is honestly what I feel like we need to go back to, is communities and multi-generational homes, in not just a family, because the way that things are set up right now, having kids oppresses you in so many ways, like financially, through your career. Like, if a stay-at-home parent, that's the equivalent of working 2.5 full-time jobs. And if you don't want to do that and you're being forced to do that, like, there's a word for it. You know what I mean? And it's not cool. I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say.
I do want to add on to that though, but yeah, that's awesome, Mandy. Like and I think Sarah talked about this before, the unpaid labor that goes on now, even when both parents are working, or both, even if you're not a parent, right? Like when there is a male and a female in a couple and they live together and both of them are working, then women are more likely to take on the house duties after working all day and after working a full-time job. They tend to do the things like laundry and dishes, and like all of that is just adding to that list and all that stress and adding to mental health. And men tend to be raised culturally with this like learned helplessness of, well, you do this better than me. I don't like doing this. You do this so much better, but you like cooking. You're like, yeah, but I don't like cooking every day. Anyways, like, just wanted to point that one out too. Throw it in there before we close up.
Hey,
That sounds like
a huge
roommates.
shout out to all the moms out there that are fucking working and being a full-time mom. That's fucking amazing. So I just wanted to say it's a huge shout out to them.
Y'all are superheroes.
I don't know the validity of the statistic, but I have seen it circulated on social media that single mothers actually do less hours of housework in a week than married women. With the same number of children.
Got locked up the last time. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think that's the reason that a lot of women in mothers especially end up leaving marriages. They realize that it would be a lot easier if they had one less adult child to deal with. And what happened during COVID and people having kids at home that should be in school, is a lot of women left the workforce and not a lot of men did, and nobody's really talking about that.
Hey Mandy, there's someone talking in the background. I didn't catch all of that because there was I heard someone speaking over. Do you want to repeat that?
I think it's because she's working right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we can get back to her. She said,
if I heard correctly, she was saying something about she doesn't know the specific statistics on it, but single mothers seem to have less housework to do than married women. And it has something to do with having one less adult child running around that you have to pick up after. but I missed something, and she started talking about the number of women that left the workforce versus the number of men when in conjunction with parenting. I think I kind of lost her about there.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. Like a lot of men in society just um, don't do their fair share when it comes to like housework and stuff around the house. I definitely have to agree with that.
In my
Sorry about
experience
that.
of roommates, it's about equal on both sides, really. It just comes down to how lazy a person is.
I think it's
James, do you
different
want to
being in
speak?
a relationship too.
Yes. But what I was saying, and I'm sorry about the person talking in the background, but like even as recent as, you know, when everybody, their kids were sent home from school because of COVID and quarantine and all that, thousands of women were forced to leave their jobs, and nobody's really talking about that.
Talk about it. I'd like to hear what you have to say, or if anybody else wants to talk about that. I'd
Let's
like to
hear
hear what
more.
people have to
This
say
is
about
where you talk about it right here.
I mean, what kind of long-term effects does that have on a woman's life or a woman's career? She probably can't go back to the same job. That's really hard to explain your work history. I've had trouble explaining my work history when it came to, you know, my daughter passing away and just needing, like, I tried to work my way through it and it didn't work out. Like, I couldn't do it. I was not mentally capable of doing it. And to have to explain that to a stranger every time I fucking interview, like, it's hard, and I don't want to get that personal with a stranger. But and it's the same with really any woman who's had to leave the workforce because it's been a choice between that or her child's well-being or safety or just having somebody to care for them and look after them. And men don't face those same repercussions.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that.
That's also connected to the whole equal pay thing, right? Because when Sarah, were you going to say something? And I just kind of like popped in.
Oh, I was just gonna like add that I have seen the advice, and I personally like have had employment gaps because of, you know, a lot of it, like a lot of some like different issues too, like related to like gendered issues. And like when I'm asked to like explain, can you explain this gap in your employment history? My answer is no. It's none of your business. Like, this is my work experience. If that's not good enough for you, then don't hire me. That's it. You don't need to know what I was doing in my during my gap.
Introspection and self-reflection, and they seem to leave me alone about it.
I was going to say that especially with the like gaps, a lot of times in families, it will be, okay, so who's going to take care of kids, or who's going to take care of older family members or sickly family members? And a lot of times the guy is paid more. And so it makes financial sense and economic sense to have the woman or her, like change her work hours and not work as much. So if we had equal pay, or at least female dominated employment was equal, like in those positions, then I don't think that would happen as much. And it's not necessarily always about like, oh, what can you tell them? But the fact that it exists in and of itself is bullshit.
I think that one of the things we need to address too is one of the other factors why it's usually the female members of the family that are the ones that end up staying home more, and it has to do with a certain dynamic as far as care. Dad's solution to an injury is rub some dirt on it and run it off. Mom's solution is, I'm going to clean this, sterilize it, put a fucking bandage on it so it doesn't get infected. And that's just generally understood, at which point we need to cross-train better.
Yeah, that's that weaponized ignorance I was
Cross-train
talking
a little
about.
bit. Exactly.
Weaponized incompetence, yes.
Honestly, the guys literally don't know what they're doing half the time because that's just not what they were taught. So we need to
It's a
start
culture.
teaching more. I'm seeing a new trend that I love since the pandemic happened, which is stay-at-home dads that are actually going the full, like, one of them went so far as to get himself a vintage 50s apron for when he's cooking because he wants to do the true Susie homemaker thing, but as a guy. And he's doing great. He does TikTok videos about it, and he's spreading awareness about it, and it's actually a beautiful thing to see. And the literal reason is because him and his wife, well, she made more money. That's what it was. And he taught himself, and it's gorgeous to see. And I'd like to see more of that happening out there because I think that would help to balance things out a bit.
Absolutely. And not have it be like, oh, Dad, congratulations, you're babysitting your own child. How good of you.
Yeah, like if a woman did the same thing, it would be another day and nobody would even fucking look twice at her. But because a man's doing it, oh my God, he's Wonder Dad.
I mean, just that thought process alone is a double-edged sword if you think about it. There's a reason why he's considered Wonder Dad. Holy crap, the kid survived?
Yeah. Like, it's great that it's happening.
The child survived. Congratulations, you must be a good dad. Like, that's the dynamic. Like, that's the reality of how society looks at dads. They're not the caring nurturers. They're the ones that need to be making the money. And it all comes back to how we were raised and taught, the proper way to do things. And it's wrong. Some of the best societies I've ever seen were matriarchal societies, and barely because the way they had things running was an equal share of all tasks.
Yeah, why
in Hawaii, sorry to jump in, I'll be real quick. In Hawaii, the men actually do a lot of the cooking and hunting and doing their equal part there. And in my house, there's no gender based on any of the chores that we do. It's between my wife and I, and we both cook, we both clean. We don't go, oh, that's the lady's job. You know, that's how a relationship is built. That's how love is built and equality is built. I'll use that as an example. You know, and that's there's no option with that with the person that I'm in love with. It's the way we have to do it, right? And I taught my boys that, and they're both males, and I grew them up the best I could to respect everybody, especially our matriarchs. And it's very important that we have to talk about this and create a new culture within Turtle Island that is fair and nice and equal to everybody, especially our matriarchs. It really upsets me that the state of Turtle Island, or America as we're on here tonight, is in this state. I'm embarrassed to be a male tonight. I'm I'm pretty proud of who I am in identity, but I'm very ashamed of being a male in the state that Turtle Island is in right now. I take accountability as being a male as well, and I'd like to call out all the other males that live in Turtle Island to do a better fucking job. And just like the all cops are bastards thing, until all men are good men, and you guys know what I'm talking about, you know, all men are bastards. Sorry if I offend anybody.
I want to add on to that because
a lot of people in the chat were talking about, talking about what the solution to the problems is. And, women can talk about women's issues or women's rights amongst themselves however much they want, and we can try to talk to men about them as much as we want. But if a man doesn't respect a woman, he's not listening and he's not hearing. What we really need is men to talk to other men about these things, because they're listening to you and they're hearing you, and you're the one who's going to really make the fucking difference.
Yeah, that's what I was trying.
I just want to say a shout out to the guys that are sitting and listening to us and like really hearing us out. And so yes, all men are bastards, but thank you to the ones in this conversation tonight.
And let's thank James for waiting for like 10 minutes. I know his sprockets were moving in his head and he wants to weigh in. So I don't know if that's his turn, but it's up to the matriarchs. Whose turn it is to talk. We know how the talking circle is tonight.
I just want to make sure that the ladies were finished discussing that before I called on James, so he can wait. Sorry, James.
Show.
But not sorry. What did you want to say? Did you want to say something, James? What's that?
It's just recipe being bananas.
No, this is what he starts
Recipe
to cook
with
and
bananas.
he's integrating.
James, you're cutting bananas.
Is that some Freudian cooking you've got going on there?
I think he's making a squash salad.
Did you want to say something, or did you want to just show us your cooking skills, James?
Yeah. I like this. I've got some vinegar with cilantro and onions in here that have been fermenting for a little while. And now I'm going to add the cucumber to it. Some of us men, we do cook, and we're and the likeliness of a bastard, that I am. My father, a rich white man, forgo his responsibilities and left my mother to take care of me. I have had
I need to interrupt. I'm sorry. I need to interrupt. Can we give the what was it? June. What did she call herself just now in the chat? Can we give her one last chance to add anything?
Absolutely.
Hey, okay, yeah, because June, you said you're going to bed. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah.
I know you have a lot to say.
I said I'm probably the oldest one here. I think I am. I'm almost 100% sure, unless somebody's being quiet about their age. But that's one thing different about you guys and me. I get tired. I don't know if I have anything else to say. It's been very enlightening. I do think men are getting better, and especially the men on this podcast. You're great. So keep up the good work, and the women, I appreciate everything that you've said. I hear your stories. It's some of it was very heart-wrenching. So we'd have to keep fighting for equal rights, and everybody, I'm going to say good night. I'm tired.
Thank you, Mama.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, Mama June.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, June. What?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, while James is still cooking, my personal pet peeve is when guys are like, "Hey, I cook too." No offense to you guys, I'm glad you guys cook, but professionally speaking, women are treated like crap in restaurant kitchens. Like, and it's not just kitchens, but it's like anytime you take a skill that women are known for and you make it professional, then women are going to be treated like crap in those arenas. And so, like, yes, men can cook. There are a lot of really famous chefs who are men. I am aware that it is possible, but it is more about what are those gendered roles that we keep pushing through generationally, and those duties that we keep having in the house. So yay, that's awesome. But also make sure that if you have a woman boss in your job, that you actually listen to her, treat her like with respect, and don't call her a bitch because she's telling you what to do. Is that.
Yeah, is that some? Did that happen to you on a personal level?
Yeah, I worked
Okay.
in kitchens for like 10 years. I was a classically trained by a French master chef, and the amount of times that I was told women don't belong in the kitchen, women are curses, where I had to go along with some of the most vile jokes. Where I was passed up for promotions, where even though I had hierarchy on the line, people wouldn't listen to me unless one of my like male coworkers would tell
You're in
them to do
Pennsylvania,
that.
right?
Yes.
Go to Seattle. You will love it there.
I did like see I've been all over the country, and I'm in like
As
I'm a
far as
therapist now.
are concerned, women
Because
are the
cooking
boss in kitchens, regardless of whether or not they're the boss or not. It is
I,
beautiful.
yeah, I mean, I learned how to do it, and it's happening more often now, right? Um, but generally speaking, that's still a trend. Um, and
yeah.
I can't cook. It absolutely destroyed my body. And so that's why I'm a therapist for all of my cook and server friends who have to deal with customers.
I'm sorry that you were treated like that. That's terrible. Oh, did somebody else speak up that wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off what Jen said. I also am a trained chef and have spent years and years and years in professional kitchens with men. And all over as well. And she's right. Like, it speaks to the industry as a whole. There's not a professional kitchen I've been in that I have not been degraded for my gender, harassed, physically, sexually harassed, assaulted at work on a regular basis. That is the environment to this day. Like, as up until like I stopped working in kitchens just when the pandemic happened, and that's still the behavior that exists in well-known restaurants. I mean, yeah, that is what the environment is in the restaurant industry to this day. I don't care where you go, like what major metros, it doesn't matter. That's what women are experiencing, and that's what you have to cut through to be the person that runs the restaurant. That's what women are experiencing, and that's what you have to cut through. It's generally accepted in the industry still.
Oh, I agree in most instances. What I'm saying is Seattle has changed its dynamic very dramatically since the pandemic. And now you see a very inverse situation where either A, it's just flat out equal, or B, the women that did stick around during the pandemic when all the boys ran home to take the time off, now they're in charge. Now they're getting listened to. Now they're actually in a position where the men have no choice but to listen and are having to. And it's beautiful. And I'm coming from 15 years myself of cooking professionally. And you're right. That dynamic exists consistently around this country. I just wanted to spotlight Seattle and say that the women there have taken a major step forward in the professional industry for women in general, and especially in the kitchen community. And it's very beautiful to see. You guys should just go check it out in general. It's beautiful.
So I'm just going to touch base on this. I don't want to go into too much detail. But as somebody that worked in the music industry and the concert production industry, as a woman pre-pandemic, and I'm just kind of getting back into it now. The treatment of women in that workplace, that's a whole different level that I thought I'd never experience in my life. You know, to be the woman that has to go collect the check from the man in an industry like that, it's scary. And I think that's something that needs to be taken more seriously in the workforce, is the way oftentimes we're sexualized before we're taken seriously, and how men will try to do everything but just simply shake our hand and say nice to meet you. That's a problem. And so I just kind of want to, you know, across the board, but along with the service industry, the music industry, very much so. As a woman wanting to succeed, it's a very scary place to be.
I'm curious to hear more details about like what kind of what you had to deal with as a woman in the music industry. If you'd like to elaborate on that, or if you're comfortable.
Okay. So just I kind of worked stage crews. I worked with a traveling stage crew, where what we did is we went to music festivals starting the week before the music festival, built the stages. So we're basically the construction crew that puts the stage and everything together and then tears it back down at the end of the show. So I kind of just fell into the position doing that job with a guy that he does it locally here. And I don't want to go into too much detail just because it's I have my reasons, but it was hard. They put me into the position where I took on the responsibilities of a crew lead, because all the other guys, when we would travel, you know, they would be drinking, they'd take it as a, you know, this is fun time. And then I would pick up the responsibilities. But although I was doing the work, the respect from the crews I was leading, and my pay didn't match up with that. And I had the knowledge of what people that were doing less with me, that were males on my crew, were making. So that's just one way. There was incidences where, you know, I took, you know, just worked a small venue show. I took like 10 people to set up the stage, load in the band, float them out. And oftentimes with promoters, as a stage crew, you really got to be careful about who you deal with, because you're like the last to get paid. So if they didn't make the money they were expecting to make, you might not get paid, you know, or they'll just try to skip out on you. You're bottom of the totem pole in the industry per se. There was an incident where I had brought a crew to work a show. The guy had I had another girl on my crew, and the promoter had introduced himself to me early in the day. Like, we knew who each other were. Oh, you're the crew, you know. He knew my job, my position. He knew he was going to be giving me the check at the end of the night. Well, the guys were loading out. He asked me, and like the girl that was working with me, they're like, hey, will you come back here and clean up the green room for us? And we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Well, a bunch of the guys from tour, they were like back there and stuff, and he came in, and next thing you know, he like wanted to take pictures with us in the green room, and like it was just weird, right? So he'd given me my number, and then it got uncomfortable, so I was like, we better get back out there and like help the guys tear down. Like, you literally just brought us back here to be weird. At the end of the night, everything was about done, and I went to the sound check and I was like, yo, where'd the promoter dude go? And he's like, he left like an hour and a half ago. I said, well, I didn't get paid. And he's like, do you want me to, like, what do I do? And so I called him and I'm like, you forgot something when you were here. And he's like, he made some, I just remember he made some slick comment to me. And he said he didn't, that the driver, like the hired driver for him, was off the clock. And he's like, well, I don't have a way back to the venue. You're going to have to come to my hotel. And it was, I'm not going to go much further with that. I'm sure you guys can only imagine what it was like getting that for, like check from him. But at that very moment, he told me that I had to go to the hotel. I had called 5 different males that were in the city I was working in that, I'd worked with for shows and stuff. And I had informed them of this situation, sent them my location, like, this is where I'm going. If I call you and don't say anything, just please come here. And that the fact alone that I knew in that time that I should call somebody just so I can collect a check, so I can pay the people that were working for me, that's a problem. Nobody should, as a female, you should not have to go through that in the workplace, no matter the industry you're in. But I've noticed the music industry, when it comes to who makes the money and who calls the shot, it's very male dominated. And that's why all the problems are there, because men can't do nothing right. So that's all I got to say on that one.
Yeah, and it's like so many other industries too that are dominated by men, and it shouldn't be that way. And women should never make less money than a man in any situation, in any case. It's ridiculous, and there needs to be laws to protect women. In my opinion, there needs to be more laws to protect women when it comes to equal pay.
Honestly, they just need to enforce the fucking laws they already have.
Yeah. That too. Also, James, did you still want to add on to the conversation? Because kind of.
No, I know we're running long. I don't really I'm in all right on, ladies. I so hear you and I feel you. This is a great conversation, and just keep it going. Hang tough. And, like I said, my thing is the solutions to the problems. What can we do to help? I think that building on this network that we've started here, or that Soup started, that I wasn't reluctant to join. It was just a matter of timing. And now that I'm finally housed after being homeless as a veteran and an activist for the last 10 years, I have the ability to help out more. So, I don't have much money, but wherever there's support needed, if I can be there for you, if you just need a shoulder to cry on or somebody to, vent, I'm here for you. Because that's what friends are about.
All right, thank you. So I have a question for the ladies. What can we do as a society to make things better for women in society? Is there anything that the men that are watching or in this podcast can do to help?
I think someone touched on this earlier, but you have to talk to other men. I mean, the only way things get better is men calling out other men in male dominated spaces, and it's holding each other accountable. I mean, we can't do this ourselves. If we could, it would be done already. It's you taking it upon yourselves to call out your brothers, your friends, when they make those jokes, when you see them getting radicalized into like incel-y propaganda, when you see men being, falling into, whatever kind of, problematic views, it's your responsibility to intervene. It's not ours.
Did you hear that, guys?
Yeah, just so you know that
I
can
agree.
be dangerous. I totally agree. It can be dangerous. It should be like a used with caution, because as somebody that in activism, a mob mentality is something that's very dangerous. It doesn't matter what the grouping is. If you're against a mentality that is set in its ways, or there are those that are swayed easily and are standing there because they have a Johnson, or because they're pro this, pro that, whatever. Going against the grain can be dangerous. So for those of you other guys out there, just do it with caution. Find the ones that are worth wasting the time on, because not all of them, whatever group you're in, is worth wasting your time to try to sway them or to check them and put them in place, because they will not be swayed, and they're ignorant.
Yeah. And I think there's a big difference between, like hopping on every Facebook comment thread you see and, talking to your brother-in-law on Thanksgiving. Those are two different things. And I don't think like any woman's expecting you to get into every Facebook debate you see. Like, that's not effective. That's not what we're talking about. Like, but it's your coworkers. It's the people it's the people in your life. It's the people you see and you encounter. That's where you're going to have the meaningful impact. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. We don't all want to end up like Matthew Scott and be banned constantly, but yeah, I think I definitely I think that we could all do something to make some changes. I know I've called out some men for saying some pretty nasty stuff on social media before too, but maybe messaging them directly in the future would help instead, to just be like, hey, why are you like this, or maybe educate them a little bit. But yeah.
Also, like attributing ideas that are from women to women. If someone says something and they go to you and they're like, oh, this was your idea, you can be like, no, this was this other person's. Knowing different achievements throughout history and inventors helps to like, I know that we're working in the present right now, but there's still a lot of people who think that men were the only inventors and and had the only achievements, or even having those conversations with friends and family members about how people or how different policies affect genders differently, and fighting for those policy changes, so that we either achieve more equity or those discrepancies are minimized. And respect women bosses.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of I think a lot of men in society, or a lot of men are just insecure about a dominant woman, and I think it freaks them out. Maybe, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's intimidating for other men. I don't know if other men feel that way, but I think that's a lot of that is coming from in a space of insecurity, maybe. But they need to understand that there's nothing wrong with having a woman boss.
I like that woman.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's the way that we're all socialized, and just being aware of that. It's the same way that women are socialized to be competitive against each other. And so even if you have daughters and you hear them saying like, oh, all women are catty, well, then maybe bring into like company of good women, right? And like impress upon them the importance of not competing with each other, but supporting each other and making each other grow, right? Same with like men being taught that women should not have authority or something, you know what I mean? Like, we are socialized by gender from the very moment that we're born, and we can work on that. And so just being aware of how gender affects things, I think, is really big. And thank you for listening.
Leah said she has to get her daughter to bed. Okay. Yeah, definitely, no problem. Well, does anybody else? Oh, actually, okay. So coming, I was reading the comments. And David, people want to know what Turtle Island is. Some a lady named Natalie who comments on who's been
Oh,
commenting on the
okay,
thread
yeah,
since 2000.
no problem. I can explain it really
Wants to know
quickly.
that.
If you look at North America, it looks like a great big turtle, maybe, and um, from Nunavut all the way down to what the colonials call Panama is what Turtle Island is, and I cover everything from north to south. It's all issues. There's no difference between indigenous issues or not, ally issues and people that live all over the place. It's a big issue, and I'm still ashamed to be a male because of the state of Turtle Island and how we treat our matriarchs in these societies. It's absolutely terrible. We have a lot of work to do. There's so much equality that has to be attained, and there's a culture that we have to quash that was passed on through generations from the boomers. No offense, I was raised by one, so I know at firsthand what it's like to be a neglecting father, and I experienced that as a child. So whether these guys, I'm sorry to beat on your drum, James, but whether these guys want to be swayed or they cannot be convinced, they won't be welcome in my house or in my territory as long as I can live and as long as I'll be breathing. Every single man, I'm calling you out right now, regardless of the excuses and the lame ass shit that you'll come up with and say, oh, my dad raised me bad, or my relatives were mean to me. It's no excuse to mistreat matriarchs in the workplace. I'm beside myself talking about women's rights because we shouldn't be talking about it, because women should be treated a lot better than they have been over the years and generations. We all have daughters, we all have moms, we have cousins. We have a job to do, men. I hold you all responsible right now for the state of Turtle Island. And we have to talk about this, and we have to quash the culture. We have to denounce it. We have to do away with it and do whatever we can to please our matriarchs and make it comfortable for them to do anything on Turtle Island, anywhere. This is a problem. We have to, as I said before, I'll beat on the drum that I've beat on before. We got to talk to our chiefs. We got to talk to our leaders, the people in the nice suits that go to the offices on Monday. What are they going to do about these issues? We have to write letters and pressure them and talk to them, especially men, and say this is wrong. Like, think about it. If you have a daughter, or if you have, everybody's got a mom. Like, come on, think about it. We are doing a crap ass job in Turtle Island, and I didn't mean to lengthen my explanation of what Turtle Island was, but I'm still disgusted in the state that we live in here. We're a long ways from equality, and we've got a lot of stuff to do, men, and especially men. I'm calling you out. Be better fathers. Treat your matriarchs with respect everywhere, in the workplace or wherever they are. Help them out. Don't gender bash and do all this other, oh, my boomer dad taught me this crap. Like, no, stop. Just stop. And recreate a Turtle Island that I'm envisioning. I'm a visionary. I think that there's a better future we can make for all of our people here. And in order to do that, we need to talk about these cultures that I've been bringing up. And we'll talk about all those later because I'll just ramble on for an hour and I don't want to do that. But this is my final word. I want to thank you guys for letting me join you on here. I'm David Allen Moon from Dave Moon TV from Wee-Wai-Kai Nation up in Kothet territory. Thank you all matriarchs for filling in all of this information. I can't wait to hear more, and I would love to do another episode. Gilakasla, Imut.
Yeah, thank you, David. It looks like some people are leaving. Does anybody else want to speak? Any of the women? If there's anything else you'd like to say on this podcast that you feel like needs to be out there. If not, I'll probably end the stream. Looks like David. Looks like you're in an intense conversation with somebody, but yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this stream. Just cut me off if you want. If you guys have anything else to say, any of the ladies on here. Thank you so much. And thank you for your input on how we can help empower women. And hopefully I hope the men were listening, who are watching the stream or who will watch the podcast later on. And take advice from these ladies. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
everybody.
I'm here anytime.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Soup, stick around a little bit after the stream.